Hey, Juan,
Yes.
today is Doctor Who Podcast Day, and we'll be talking
Uh,
all about that later on. But I've got this really cool special discount. Friend of the podcast, Ken Deep, has given us a really cool special for LI Who, which is Long Island's Doctor Who convention. It's going to be August 23rd to 25th at the Holiday Inn Long Island in Holtsville, New York. You want to know what the special discount is?
sure. What is it?
Okay, so if you go to their website, longislanddoctorwho.com, and purchase general admission passes right now, you will get $19 off your admission just today if you do it today, August 9th. This is only good for weekend passes and Sunday passes. Weekend passes are normally $89, so you'll get it for $70 if you do it today. If you get a Sunday pass, it's $40. You will get it for $21. This is great news, isn't it?
No, it's fabulous. I mean, unfortunately, media cons are a little bit on the high side.
I've wanted to go to LI Who, and you know what, Ken? Now that I've done this, please send me along. Ken, you definitely should invite me to do panels because I really want to be there. I mean, this year we have some great guests. Colin Baker, Nicola Bryant, met them both. I actually had Nicola on our show before. Mark Strickson, Fraser Hines, Yijit So. We had him on the show. Annette Badland, Jacqueline King, Colin Spall. We had him on the show. Daphne Ashbrook. Had her on the show. Dominic Glynn, Terry Malloy. Need I say more? On the show. Jason Ellery, Jonathan Watson, Nev Fountain, John Peel, Keith Barnfather. Oh, yeah. So many people coming to this convention. The panels look great. So definitely get your $19 off if you buy a ticket today. Long Island Doctor Who. If you want to get this discount, you can use the code DWPD 2024. That's DWPD 2024. And now guess what, Juan?
What? What?
It's time for the show.
Hello, this is Peter Davison, and you're listening to MarkWHO42.
Welcome, everybody, to MarkWHO42's Universe. I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten, and with me today are...
Vicky Jakubowski.
Hey, Vicky, how you doing?
I'm a-doing.
Yeah, I hear about those fires that you're getting all over the place.
This side of the country. Well, actually, I guess it's more than this side of the country, but yeah, it's a little smoky over here.
Only you can prevent... No,
Only
anyway,
me.
Only you. And we also have direct from Edinburgh,
Juan Sanmiguel.
Hey, Juan, how's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. I mean, doing touristy stuff, having fun. Checked out the Writers Museum today. Checked out, which focuses on Sir Walter Scott, Robert Louis Stevenson, and Robert Burns, the poet.
What are you doing? What are you doing over there? Why are you there?
By the time you hear this, I will be in the middle of the 82nd Worldcon.
Wow.
That is so cool.
Definitely. It's interesting that you're over there in Great Britain because today's show deals with something originating from Great Britain. Just to let everyone know, today is Doctor Who Podcast Day. Yes, Doctor Who Podcast Day. This is the second year that they're doing it. Everyone's doing it, and who are Doctor Who podcasts around the globe. August 9th, today's date, August 9th. The reason it's Doctor Who Podcast Day is because back in 2005, the very first Doctor Who podcast ever came out, Doctor Who Podshock, produced by Gallifreyan Embassy Weekly for many years, and it was based on Long Island. And the show ran for 343 episodes from 2005 to 2018. So we commemorate Doctor Who and Doctor Who Podshock with Doctor Who Podcast Day. Last year in 2023, 23 different podcasts took part, including us. Yeah, it's mostly Doctor Who podcasts. And we kind of slipped in there because we do talk about Doctor Who. And because we were a Doctor Who podcast back in 2012. To find these other podcasts, go to social media and look for hashtag DWPD and or hashtag Doctor Who Podcast Day. There are some really good ones out there just like us. And you can go and listen to other podcasts after you listen to us that are celebrating Doctor Who Podcast Day. We've got The Power of Three, The Sirens of Audio, Toby Haddock's Time Travels, WD Magicast. Yes, there's a Walt Disney Magicast, Vicky, doing Doctor Who Podcast Day.
I love it.
And there's Type 40. And you know what's interesting about Type 40?
I heard they're going to have some guy on it I might know of. What's
Yeah, I can't remember. Mark Baumgarten. Yeah, it's me. I'm on Type 40. After you listen to this, go directly to Type 40 at Doctor Who Podcast, and you could hear more of me.
Nice.
All right. Well,
nice.
So definitely, it's Doctor Who Podcast Day, and we decided because of that, let's talk Doctor Who. And we're gonna and San Diego Comic-Con was the other weekend, the last weekend in July, and Russell was there, and Chudy and Millie were there, and they were talking Doctor Who. But on the next day after the Doctor Who panel, they had a very special panel where Star Trek and Doctor Who mixed. It was a Unity panel. So, Vicky, what were they talking about at that Doctor Who Star Trek crossover panel?
Well, they were talking about how they're going to intertwine two games, and Star Trek and Doctor Who will intertwine.
Ooh.
Lower Decks mobile game, and Lower Decks being that animated series that we all love.
Oh, I love that show. Yeah.
And the Badgey Detective mobile game and Doctor Who Lost in Time will cross over, and starting August 1st.
So it's already happening.
It's
already happening. You can play the game now.
And you can play it from two different perspectives. So you can either play it from the Doctor Who perspective or the Star Trek perspective.
Wow.
And this was done specifically for International Friendship Day.
Yeah.
And so you could play it from, either perspective, and you have to join forces with the other team to and of course, it's not just Doctor Who. I mean, you've got K9, you've got River Song, and you need to repair a ripple through time and space. Something we've seen in both Star Trek and Doctor Who. So of course, to me, without even having seen any of the videos or trailers, I'm going to go with, okay, we're going to have some humor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and by the way,
it is Lower Decks. You have to have humor. It's Lower Decks.
And just so you know, it's the David Tennant Doctor.
Ooh, so 10 or 14?
I'm going to go with 10.
Okay. All right.
Because as I see it, it feels like it's 10 because he's young and fresh as opposed to the older 14. Where he's just trying to figure out who he is. I mean, because he's an older and wiser when he's 14.
Right.
He's still young and scrappy-ish when he's 10. So, I like it because everything that's said about this, and I don't know, I don't normally play mobile games, but I might give it a try and I probably would like to try it both ways, but one would be playing it as a Doctor Who fan and one would be playing it as a Star Trek fan because I'm both.
Me too, of course.
But it would be fun. Let's solve a interdimensional timey-wimey rift in space. They both have the same problems, but it sounds interesting, and I like the idea that you would have this sort of crossover. And I know that they have had some other ones that we're going to talk about that have happened over the years. And I think the only sad thing that has not happened as of yet is there hasn't been a movie or an official TV show that has ever happened because, frankly, it fits when you think about it. But that's just my 2 cents.
Well, here's the thing. So Doctor Who is on Disney Plus and Star Trek is on Paramount Plus. Now, am I right in hearing that Paramount Plus is having some problems and might be sold somewhere?
Oh God.
Because
I don't
I'm
know. They
thinking,
just bought Warner Brothers. At
then
this
they're not.
point,
Then they're fine.
I don't know if they can be allowed to buy anymore because they're now selling the Disney plus package, which is Disney, Hulu, and Max.
Yeah, I saw that.
And you look at that and you kind of go, at this point, it's going to, and I may be a fan of Disney,
Right.
but I'm a little nervous because I don't like it when any one person has all the power. Because didn't we see that with, I don't know, we've seen that with the Klingons, we've seen that with the Romulans, we've seen that with the Daleks, we've seen that when the Cybermen take over. I mean, it doesn't go well.
But what I was going to is the fact if Paramount Plus went, or Disney, that's, we're not going to find out till January if Disney keeps Doctor Who, but if they end up on the same streaming service, then I see a crossover. I kind of don't see one.
Why not have a real
Disney Paramount?
Well, there used to be a time when the studios would share. I mean, yeah, they were still pains in the butts, but they would share and they would do crossovers anyway. And you don't have to be in the same studio to have a crossover. You don't have to be even on the same lot. Now, it's true that would make things easier, but come on. I mean, everyone rents from each other's lots. I mean, you've got you look at anything. I just watched Deadpool. And as I'm sitting there watching the credits, you've got the special effects teams is every special effects is including Weta and Lucasfilms and every small and big special effects house that there is. So clearly there is sharing going on. And it's being filmed in 4 different countries in major. And so it's like, you look at some of the studios I mean, the Disney studios doesn't just have Disney films being filmed there.
Right.
Universal Studios doesn't just have Universal films being filmed there.
True, you're right. Because even like Desilu Productions, they Star Trek and Mission Impossible were theirs, but all the other shows were filmed there. All right, so that's cool. But I want to continue the conversation. I want to talk about some other Doctor Who Star Trek crossovers.
Oh, yeah.
Juan, tell me a little about that Diane Duane book from the 80s.
All right, Diane Duane wrote a book called My Enemy, My Ally. And it was a Romulan novel. It was mainly the Romulans and led by the commander. But the thing is, in an early scene, Herb Tanzer, a character that Diane created, I think she had I forget if it was an early version of the holodeck, and she was able to create Tom Baker as the TARDIS.
Yes, I remember that book. Yeah, and it was the Fourth Doctor materialized with his TARDIS in a hologram. So that's cool. There is well, I don't know if the books are canon. I guess, are they? The books aren't canon.
Well, not particularly that one.
No.
Because unfortunately, Rick Berman, and I will always say bad things about Rick Berman, decided not to use any of the stuff from the books. And definitely, unfortunately, one of the other problems that Nemesis has, it completely contradicts, I think, a lot of the stuff in the book when they introduce what the Remans were. But there was, there are a couple of other crossovers. There was, I think, the outfit that was called Enterprise Incidents put out kind of a book that I found in a comic shop called The Doctor and the Enterprise.
I had that. That was great.
And I think if I remember correctly, the Enterprise, I think, came into the Doctor Who universe because I think the Daleks got involved in it at some point. So towards the end of the book. And I think the hilarious part is that there's a mind meld between the Doctor and Spock, and I think
Mhm.
they each start acting like the other. I think that was a little bit of a
Whoa.
gag. Now
Yeah, that
most
was a
recent,
cool book to get. I was so happy when I found that. I think it was at Omnicon I picked that up.
really, I could well, it
I
could have been
think
around
so.
that time. I thought I got it later than that.
Might
So, and
well, I
then
mean, they went to 89. The last Omnicon was 89, so it was
okay.
somewhere in there.
Now there was kind of an official one when IDW had both the licenses for Doctor Who
Mm-hmm.
and Star Trek. They did do a crossover where I think it was the Borg and the Cybermen, and I think it was Matt Smith's era. But then they
Yes.
also had a flashback with Tom Baker and the original series.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was pretty good. And I think we got the interview. I think I interviewed for your show,
Mm-hmm.
for the show, the artist on that who also did the art for the adaptation of City on the Edge of Forever of Harlan Ellison's original script and not the shot script. So it was the same
Ooh.
guy, and his name is escaping me. Uh,
Oh,
but he was a really great guy. He was a really fun interview, and you apparently you used it.
not Tony Way. It was I'm gonna edit that
No, he
out if
might
it
have been the
wasn't.
writer.
Okay. Then
I
let
know
me edit that
Tony
out.
Tony was the writer. There was a writer named Tony.
Okay.
And the thing is, and now there was an idea that Paul Cornell wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to do a crossover, but he wanted to do 60s Star Trek and 60s Doctor Who because he noticed that in Star Trek you have a central character surrounded by a smart character and a more emotional character. And in 6th season Doctor Who, you had the Doctor with brainy Zoe
Mm-hmm.
and less brainy and
With a
emotional
heart. With a
Jamie.
heart. Yes.
So we thought that would make a good crossover. And literally the 3rd season of Trek and 6th season of Doctor Who did overlap. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've been following me on Guardians of Gallifrey, but the I've been posting the reviews of the Galactic Journey uh, fanzine. Now the fanzine works on this premise that years ago a time bubble has formed in editor Gideon Marcus's house, and his house is 55 years into the past. So he's using the computer equipment to cover the science fiction scene. And the last thing we've been doing the last 3 years is watching Star Trek on the 55th anniversary of the original broadcast dates, which
Ooh.
is recently wrapped
Ooh.
up.
Yeah.
And I think I told you that 55 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
after the War Games wrapped up, a few weeks
Yes.
later,
On BBC One. Yeah.
on BBC One, Star Trek made its debut. Now, apparently, according to Galactic Journey's research, they opened up in black and white, City on the Edge of Forever, because
Yeah,
they
they
were
did do black and
replacing.
white.
Yeah, the BBC would not go into color until next year with Spearhead from Space,
Mm-hmm.
and all the other shows would also be going in color.
Well, no, I think there was one or two. I mean, it just people didn't have the color sets. I think they did
Well,
there was some programming in color. BBC Two might have had some special stuff, but regardless,
BBC
anyway, you were
Two's
saying,
yeah.
yeah, what you were
So
saying.
so Doctor Who and Star Trek kind of overlapped, and that's what Paul was aiming for. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, what happened was IDW then lost the rights, and the BBC took the rights and started publishing their own comics through Titan.
Yeah.
And so that idea has not been resurrected. So I think that's the state of. And there was one more crossover that I just bought a few weeks
Ooh.
ago at the North
Okay.
American Science Fiction Convention.
Okay.
Apparently, they got David Gerrold to write a quick, small comic book story um, about David Tennant meeting the original cast
Mm-hmm.
around the time of Trouble with Tribbles, which David wrote.
Ooh.
And there is a surprise twist because it turns out to be a dream of somebody. I don't know if I should spoil it because it's
Well,
the last picture.
maybe not. Maybe we don't want to spoil it for people.
Now I don't know
Um.
where you can get it, but it was published by Amazing Stories.
Okay.
I know the guy. I kind of know the guy who's now in charge of Amazing Stories magazine. So he had a bunch of copies because he had a table, and he's Canadian, Lloyd Penny, and he had it. And I go, oh hey, another David Gerald.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a numbered comic book, so I don't know how rare these things are.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, this is great. Now, if we were able to come up with an idea for a Star Trek
Mm.
Doctor Who crossover, what would you suggest? And I know Juan has an answer to this.
Well, I think I already gave you my answer. I think
Well,
I'd like the Paul Cornell idea. I'd like to
yeah.
run with that because it was kind of weird because as I said, the Galactic Journey is reviewing 55 years, so they would be reviewing the episode of Star Trek a week after it came out 55 years ago, and then their British correspondent Jessica Holmes would be reviewing. She would usually review episodes in chunks. Like if it was a four-parter, she'd do the four-parter when it was done. If it was a six-parter, she would break it up into two sections. And the war game she broke up into three sections.
Yeah.
In fact, I posted those links. I don't know if you follow the Guardians of Gallifrey on Facebook, but I would always link up to it.
Okay.
In fact, I had some fun. I decided to get all hip and jivey, for lack of a better word, to introduce the season opener to Dominators, because I said the groovy planet of Dulcus is being invaded by a bunch of squares and their cute little robots, and that's what the Doctor, Zoe, and Jamie have to face. And after I introduced it a few weeks ago, that the crew of the Enterprise had to deal with a bunch of crazy women who had just stolen Spock's brain.
Oh, I wonder what. Not Spock's brain. No.
No, that's what the network decided to open up Star Trek. They said, "Hey, everybody loves Mr. Spock. Let's give them a Mr. Spock episode to open season 3."
Yeah. I want to say through the magic of the interweb thingy, the comic was called Assimilation², which I did know, and it was written by Scott Tipton and David Tipton and Tony Lee. Tony Lee. We had that. It was illustrated by J.K. Woodward.
That was who I interviewed, J.K. Woodward.
Yeah, and I think we did put that on the show. So if you want to listen to our old shows, go to YouTube, to MarkWHO42's Universe YouTube channel, and look at the playlist, classic episodes, and it will be in there somewhere. I don't know where it is. I can't remember what episode number, but you know what? That's your homework assignment, listeners, here on Doctor Who Podcast Day 2024. Vicky, if you could do a crossover, Star Trek and Doctor Who, where would you go?
Oh, that's a tough one. You know, I'd love to see, you know, yeah, I'd love to see Patrick Stewart and David Tennant. You know, Patrick Stewart in his heyday, David Tennant in his heyday.
Right.
You know, just with in their, you know, reigning glory. Just, you know, I don't know, solving problems together and being witty and I would actually enjoy just about anything. That's the problem.
Yeah.
The different ways that they could do things. Now, I love the original series, and we could have lots of fun with that. And that could just be loads of fun. But I would love something smart, something really, you know, really smart. So I would love the really, you know, I'm thinking like you know, the Tom Baker or the David Tennant, or you know, and then I'm thinking like the Patrick Stewart days, where we've got these really on the ball, super smart, make me want to go, you know, make me want to join up, you know. Crazy adventures. But you know, I'm thinking about some of the mysteries that they would solve. And oh hell, you know, it just gets trying to pick one. That's my problem. I can't pick one.
Okay, I've got an idea.
Okay, throw it at me.
All right, so you have Patrick Stewart, you have Picard, and you have the perfect foil for Picard. You have Peter Capaldi's Doctor. Picard and Capaldi, and we finally end this this Borg Cyberman dilemma where it's the same but it's not the same. We tie them together, and Locutus has a big part, and I would do something like that. But I think Capaldi and Patrick Stewart would be perfect together.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
That could be really fun.
Yeah, I think so. I really do think it's a
Oh my God, that could be really fun.
I love
I would watch
talking.
that.
I would watch it too.
I would watch it.
I
Although
came up with it. I
Vicky-
want money. I want my
I gotta
money
take-
from the BBC.
I politely take Vicky to task. I mean, Patrick Stewart and David Tennant just did their respective roles less than 2 years ago on
That's
their
true.
respective
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah.
I think they were both on top. I mean, the only thing is, I don't think we could ask Sir Patrick to run for a long time, but
I know.
Yeah.
I know. That's kind of the it's hard when I think about you know the the decades. There's almost like individual episodes that or characters or situations or just I don't know, have them occasionally cross paths when I think about some of the issues that one on either side, on either Doctor Who or Star Trek, that they've had to solve. You know, it would be kind of cool to see the other one involved in it too, because boy, that would just add another level of mystery and information to it. And you know, because some of them, I mean, you know, we're talking about time and space and for as much as in Star Trek they try and say, you know, we don't mess with time. Yeah, right. You know, please. And I have enjoyed both shows, and while it's true not everything could cross over, not every aspect would lend itself as that. I mean, some of the fun shows, like you know, you're talking earlier, Tribbles, they even did in Star Trek a timey-wimey crossover themselves
on Deep Space Nine. Yeah.
on Deep Space Nine, and that was so awesome. And I mean, that would have been fun throwing a doctor in that one too. Because that's something like that, you can have more and it works.
Yeah.
And then you have ones where you know, I mean, I'm thinking like I would have loved more Sherlock Holmes characters or more Sherlock Holmes episodes in Next Generation. It's such a shame we only had 2, and that would have been fun to throw in a Doctor Who.
Okay, I hate to do this. I hate to do this. We need to take a quick break, and we'll be right back here on MarkWHO42's Universe.
Don't go away. We'll be back with more Mark Who 42 after this.
Get ready for the ultimate geek experience right here in the Sunshine State. Florida Geek Scene presents a full calendar of events and conventions. From anime to horror, we've got it all. Meet your favorite stars, find rare collectibles, and immerse yourself in your passions. Experience the thrill of cosplay and witness amazing live performances. Stay up to date with the latest news and reviews all across Florida. Florida Geek Scene, where pop culture happens. Visit us online for more. Don't miss out on the fun. Join us at Florida Geek Scene. FloridaGeekScene.com.
Hello, geeks and geekettes. I'm Steve Megatron, and if you're looking for a podcast that covers a vast array of geeky topics, then check out Altered Geek. Altered Geek covers superheroes, Star Trek, pop culture, comics, film, television, animation, gaming, tech, and more. So check out Altered Geek and get altered, get geeky with the Altered Geeks every Friday on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, SoundCloud, Blog Talk Radio, and the Geekcast Radio Network.
You are listening to MarkWHO42's Universe.
And we're back to more of MarkWHO42's Universe on Doctor Who Podcast Day 2024. Yes, if you're listening to this on the day the episode dropped, it's August 9th, Doctor Who Podcast Day in honor of Doctor Who Podshock, the first podcast back in 2005 on August 9th, celebrating Doctor Who podcasts all around the globe. All right, where were we? Vicky, you were talking.
Yes. I was talking about how, what was I talking about? I was talking about how in individual episodes it would be really cool to have some crossovers, and like, in there was a couple of Sherlock Holmes episodes
And the Trouble with Tribble one I thought was good.
And the Trouble with Tribble ones, and that would have been cool to have Doctor Who in. And then there would have been some cool to have some Doctor Who episodes where it was, I mean, he's out in space. Why wouldn't he venture more humans? I feel like, most of the time when he ventures with humans and he runs into humans, Earthlings in space, it's interesting that it's often, it's weird because he doesn't seem to meet with humans in the most, I'm not going to, well, maybe I will. He doesn't always seem to run into humans in the most positive light when he runs into humans out in space. I think about some of the situations where, I'm picturing, I can't suddenly think of the names of episodes, forgive me, but the they're mining and they come across the demonic characters, and it just, they're not terribly progressive,
right?
And so the opposite of what Star Trek is. And I'd love for him to run into characters like the Federation and the future of humans being more positive, as opposed to, I mean, we just kind of make a mess of ourselves as we keep going forward for a while. And it would have been cool for him to see the Federation and some of the positive changes that we make. And I don't know. It just would be fun to have them kind of. I almost picture it like a double helix where they kind of come and they go and intertwine, and not all the time, just a on again, off again. Oh, hey, nice to see you again. I know you. Kind of like he does with River Song. I know, it's weird.
Very weird, Vicky.
I know.
Very weird. Okay, Juan, any other crossover ideas you can think of?
Now that I think about it, maybe you could try to do something and have it'd be kind of interesting because they were around the same time, have maybe the Doctor and Ace crossover with Next Gen, and then maybe have the Eighth Doctor do a crossover with, DS9 or Voyager, and, make the eras, kind of have the eras crossover when the respective shows were active.
Oh.
It's just an idea. I mean, crossovers are fun. I mean, the idea is to get two ideas. I mean, I was just thinking about crossovers in general. DC kind of started it way back, kind of limited with Superman and Batman on World's Finest. But it wasn't until the Silver Age with the establishment of the Justice League and the Marvel Universe where you had people showing up in each other's books that you had to cross-reference. And after a while, it became incredible to make sure that, can this be plausible, or are we having, making sure everything kind of worked. And also, even in an example, there was a writer, John Kessel, who did a book called Pride and Prometheus, where he realized that when Frankenstein's monster runs off at the end towards the Antarctic, while he was in England, he would have passed by the Darcy estate. So he wrote a novel called Pride and Prometheus, where it's after Pride and Prejudice, and I'm trying to remember the brainy daughter, the middle daughter of, she kind of confronts the Frankenstein monster, and the monster has to be dealt with also. Frankenstein has to be dealt with, Victor has to be, and it was actually pretty good. I gave it to a friend of mine who was a big fan because he started as a short story, and to be honest, she wasn't impressed. She didn't get the whole crossover thing. And but then again, she's
Mhm.
a big Austen fan. I mean, one time when I was cat sitting, I noticed that I knew she was an Austen fan before, but she had an Austen book at the night table when I was chasing her cat, who was hiding under the bed. So she didn't see the whole crossover thing. It's like, it doesn't work for me, and maybe it doesn't work. It's something you have to work because you want to have a good interaction. You want when they come together, something happens, and what that something is a little bit hard to describe. It's a little
Yeah.
bit of magic. I mean, sometimes there was a crossover in an anime. I'm not going to go into detail where I think you have the characters, hi, we've met. Then we have to do other things, and I think that's kind of a sad loss when you have an opportunity of them teaming up and working on a problem.
All right. Guys, this episode for Doctor Who Podcast Day, we're gonna keep it short. We want people to listen to us and see what we're about, and hopefully that's what they've done. And we're going to end it here. Does that sound all right, guys?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Just remember that if you go to LongIslandDoctorWho.com, go to LI Who, you can get a $19 discount on general admission weekend or Sunday with the code DWPD 2024. Thanks to Ken Deep, who is one of the head people at LI Who, Long Island Doctor Who. And folks, if you want to hear more of me and you want to hear other Doctor Who podcasts, go to Type 40, the Doctor Who podcast, and you can hear us talk more about Doctor Who Podcast Day. But on behalf of myself, Mark Baumgarten, Vicky Jakubowski, and Juan Sanmiguel, any final words?
Have fun with crossovers, and maybe they'll happen.
Yeah.
Keep your fingers crossed and live long and prosper.
Definitely. Juan, have a great time at Glasgow 2024. You're having it now. I hope you're enjoying it.
Yes, I hope I plan to.
Anyway, guys, on behalf of all of us, so long, and we'll see you next time. Bye. You've been listening to MarkWHO42's Universe. Your hosts were Mark Baumgarten, Vicky Jakubowski, Zion Kiros, and Juan Sanmiguel. MarkWHO42's Universe was produced and directed by Mark Baumgarten. If you've got a comment or anything you want to let us know about, please email us at markwho42.42@gmail.com. Our website is markwho42.com, and you can find old shows from back as far as 2012 on our YouTube channel, MarkWHO42's Universe. MarkWHO42's Universe, copyright 2024.